where you asked which Disney character would you fuck. So we won't ask that today. I think we have some other good ones that won the poll. So
Yeah, we were a little concerned about that.
I put some thought into it. I put some real thought into it, and I think I have a proper PC answer that I'm comfortable with.
Usually most folks just throw out Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit because she was like an adult person. But yeah, it's definitely a contentious conversation after the fact. People are like, please don't air that.
Mrs. Incredible, Elastigirl, also an adult, amazing mom, amazing wife, matriarch, strong, powerful female, which the world needs more. Drop the mic.
I love it. So
reminds me a lot of my wife.
Nice. I like your style.
The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians, and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Stoned Appetit. With your host, as always, it's me, Kip. I'm coming to y'all from the smoking den today. We're going on a virtual adventure, is how I'm going to call it. We're sitting down with the man, the myth, the legend, Nishant Reddy, who is the founder of a Golden State cannabis company in California. We're going to talk about that company, but he has a vast knowledge not only of the cannabis industry, as well as just kind of living life and talking all things like you heard in the intro, Disney, and just shoot the shit. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors of the podcast, the Shop Cali's brand. As y'all know, you've seen it on our social media. For those that have been listening for weeks, Cali's bought out Botanico and opened 2 new locations right here in the smack dab heart of Denver. We've got one on 31st and Larimer, and we got the other one down on West 8th, right off the I-25. In addition to the one they have located in North Glen. So check them out. They're some of my favorite flower in town. They have great deals on edibles, concentrates, and they're good people too. The bud tenders will help you out. If you're in the industry, for our restaurant friends, they're working with rewards programs and industry discounts. So if you're going in there after a long shift or before a shift to grab a pre-roll, tell them that we sent you. I think they'll give you a discount. I'm pretty sure they'll give you a discount. Tell them Stoned Appetit sent you in there, and they'll be working with you all throughout the summer to make sure that they help out those same people that kept us fed and kept us entertained all through the year. They're going to take care of y'all. All right, back to the party. That was a hell of an ad read by me. I'm not going to brag on myself, but I'll do it. Chris isn't here, so I'll toot my own horn. Nishant, tell us, I guess we usually ask the same question every week, and I'll do the same even though we're virtual. Transplanter or native to Colorado? Where are you coming
Actually
from?
Don't live in Colorado. Actually live in California.
Yeah.
But I'm actually a transplant to California. I grew up in New Jersey, but was living in New York City before I made the move to LA to kind of start building my cannabis companies.
Whoa. Okay. So are you a Northeast kid? Grew up there?
Yeah. Like I said, born in New Jersey, went to school in DC. Pretty much spent most of my adult life in New York working. And then as soon as I decided that cannabis was it, made the move to LA, had actually never been to LA, but just had this vision in terms of what I could create. Knew that California at some point would be the largest legal cannabis market in the world. Figured why not go there, right? And then like the movies and the TVs, how bad could California really be,
I mean, yeah, it's traffic and, bikinis and sand and great food. And now it's really green cannabis. I don't think you're in the wrong. I feel like a lot of people go for, from New York to LA, and they're like, I'm never going back to New York. We have a fun question we ask. We have a strong contingency of guests that have joined us from New York, as well as friends and followers. What was the age in which you started driving or riding the public transit system around the metro up there on your own? At what was it, like 12? always like to ask, because y'all grow up so fast up there.
I think it was either my junior or senior year of high school.
Okay.
Probably when I was going to West 4th Street in the Village to pick up my first fake ID.
Oh, okay. So besides that,
Yeah,
it was
so
you were
me
always
and a couple of friends.
okay. Well, I guess, if there was some nefarious acts going on at that age, then I guess the next question is how did we get introduced to marijuana? I mean, living in the big city, were you 12? Because I feel like everyone's doing cocaine at 15 in New York. So weed's got to be like a 10.
So I actually grew up in like a small suburb, man, like, probably like 35 miles outside of the city. So it was pretty sleepy, like pretty family centric, sleepy. Everyone's parents worked in New York, you could see the skyline and things like that. But, growing up, it was definitely a safe, sheltered arm's length from the city.
Okay.
First time I smoked pot was my freshman year of high school. I think it was, if I recall, like my first or second week of freshman year.
Okay, there you go. See, when something sticks with you like that, you can almost remember, you're like, the skies were blue, the birds were chirping, my hands are sweating, things like that, And did you fall in love with it?
I remember it all, man.
Did you fall in love with it?
I did fall in love with it. It was at my friend John Fowler's party. He went to another school at the time, and I went over there, and I remember his brother pulled out a bowl by a tree in their front yard. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is this? And yeah, that was my first hit of weed. Definitely fell in love with it. Definitely was freaked out to go home that night and hide it from my parents, But as we're sitting here today, I haven't really stopped smoking pot. So yeah, we'd call it love at first sight.
I love it. So when I guess, you mentioned you went to school in DC, were you a horticulturist, or what was the angle in which were you a grower? What was the goal intended when you're like, I'm coming to LA, I've never been to Cali? Did you have the green thumb? What experience did you have in the game?
Yeah, so my academic background was actually more like finance and economics, with like a focus in entrepreneurship. And then my professional career prior to cannabis was more focused around investment banking and private equity. So I had a strong foundation in, building businesses, structuring deals, raising capital, had done a couple other startup ventures, was running my own real estate development company. That actually coincidentally led me to an opportunity where there was a dispensary group in California. Obviously, this was pre-rec legalization, right? So around 2013, 2014, they were looking to raise money. And, as you know, today, there's not a whole lot of ways to raise capital unless it's private investment, right? So I was able to help them secure a private placement loan. Through that process, they asked me to come on board and act as an interim COO because they knew I had the business background, the investment skills. And that's really when my love for cannabis, my vision as an entrepreneur in what I would want to create in cannabis really got married with the first time of me working and operating an actual legal cannabis business and being like, wow, this is insane. There's an entire legal market on the West Coast. I can't believe this as a New Yorker. On top of that, this is a extremely viable business. And then it was, all the boxes were checked for me. And then it was just like, I'm moving to LA. I can build this. This is what I want to do. It marries my passion and my technical skills.
I couldn't agree more. As someone who honestly, you speak very well and brokering and deals, I need your business acumen assistance because I have the gift of gab and the love of cannabis. And so that's what's led us all here together today.
Definitely.
But it seems like, you've gotten a great head start on it. Pre-rec, you knew kind of exactly what angle you wanted to take. And then you have the history behind it. So when did we start these companies? I looked into a Golden State and I haven't teased it yet, but I think one of just reading about your product is just one of the mind-blowing things of the runoff. We're going to talk about it. It's fascinating. I have so many questions about how that works. So that's what made me wonder if you're a horticulturalist because of how you are repurposing the snow melt in the water to help irrigate your plants. So I was just kind of curious. That's what made me wonder if you were the floral guy or the business side. So
no. So the funny thing is, so when I started building these companies, I actually did start to pursue a degree in horticulture from UCLA to kind of bring the entire academic knowledge full circle, right? So I think where a lot of quote unquote business people fail in cannabis is that A, they don't have an appreciation or a passion for cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm.
B, they don't really understand it. And C, they don't know the first thing about cultivating it, the plant, the science, the consumer, et cetera. So for me, it was critical that I actually had that foundation and I could really actually run and build these businesses myself. Because just being a business guy, being a private equity guy, that's just how you would approach a business in a traditional sense. If you were going to build an aviation business, that's how you would do it, right? You would have a mastery of it. So just because this is pot, why would you approach it any different? And I think that's where a lot of people get caught, is because they oversimplify, how hard it is to really build successful cannabis companies.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not only difficult, but it's also kind of difficult. I mean, not only is that difficult, but it's also difficult to kind of interpret the curve. And so you've managed to be ahead of it, and so to speak, kind of understanding where it's going. And, it's not just in the business side, but also in your like production side. Y'all have carbon neutral cannabis brands. Y'all are kind of highly committed to the sustainable practices. And that may just be more of a Cali thing, and Colorado is in that as well. But coming from where we both grew up, that was not a thing. So what's on the forefront for you now? Like what should we know a little bit more about that y'all are doing that maybe others aren't doing, others that could take notes, other people that are listening in?
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I mean, like, listen, I think you and I both share like a very long, intimate love of cannabis, right? We could probably exchange stories for years and years about all the good times and stuff. And, but when I think about weed, like what it means for me personally, that's what it is, right? Like it's intrinsically good. I don't think back on my memories, my entire life of consuming cannabis in all types of situations, meeting so many people over this journey, being like, man, that sucked. Or like that was a negative experience, or that, pot brought me something bad, right? So when it comes to the vision I have and what I want to create, whether it's the companies I have, the brands that I have, or the future, that's where everything starts. It's that cannabis is intrinsically good, and that I have the opportunity to shape how people view and use cannabis. And if that's the case, I'm going to do it in the absolute best way I know how to do that. And that's going to be the best cannabis, producible, consumable, the cleanest products, focus on sustainability, because it's freaking important. It's just basics, you literally need to be living under a rock if you don't think that sustainability is important in today's environment, right? And so we're a brand new industry. We have the opportunity to do things right. So for me, it's a very simple choice of like, why wouldn't I do it the right way, right? And that goes all the way, you had mentioned Cory Booker, even like that's where that relationship came from, right? It was just a desire to do social justice the right way. And that's just stayed very core to us from the beginning, and it's core to us today. And it will be this way for the future, right?
Okay, so yeah. For sure. And I think whatever I mentioned about Cory Booker may have been pre-episode recording. So for those that don't know, you've actually worked, I don't know if this was in your tenure while you were in DC, that you were able to kind of build these relationships and kind of work on it's, I guess, corny to say, but grassroots campaign. But you have worked, on the federal level with some of our politicians, in the country's capital, working on cannabis legislation. Give us a little background as to how stupid are those people? Like we see things like Biden administration today says they don't want to, appease the DC market of having legalized cannabis. And like, are these people real? I mean, we saw a senator last week mention that can the United States knock the earth off its rotation to help with the orbit around with the moon? Like how dumb are some of these people? And when it comes to cannabis, are they even dumber than they perceive to be on TV?
No, it's a really good question, man. It's like, I'm not someone that I can say, I'm not a highly politically motivated person, right? I'm not obsessive with politics and things like that. But because of my position, our parent company, Satya Capital, we're a private equity, cannabis-focused private equity company. I've had to have a lot of interaction with legislatures, bureaucrats, whether it's opening up operations in new states, whether it's petitioning for bills, as you mentioned. And I don't think they're dumb, right? I don't think it's a question that they're dumb. I think a lot of these guys are actually quite smart. but it's headline risk. You know, someone like yourself or someone like myself, we've made a decision to say that